Hi everyone, welcome to the final video in our series From Struggle to Support, a complete guide to the Intervention 504 and IEP processes. This series is sponsored by Revive Technologies. And in our last video, we are going to focus on functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention plans, and then the review of the behavior intervention plans. So let's go ahead and get started. So a functional behavior assessment is done when a child has significant behaviors that are affecting their learning. Typically, from what I have seen, it tends to be behaviors that are disruptive to the learning environment. So the child has acting out behaviors, yelling, constantly interrupting the teacher, just by calling out. They're having trouble keeping their hands to themselves. More physical behaviors, those kinds of things. And then also a lot of what I see is students who are having trouble just staying in their seat. They may not be loud, but they're having trouble staying in their seat or their assigned area, or they are having difficulty with getting work completed. Not infrequently with that, maybe some resistance to doing their work. So the first step in, and we at this point, you've usually already put some behavior goals in place, and there may be some process with that, but there's a need for a more intense level of support. So that's where a behavior intervention plan would come into place. And the first step for that is to do a functional behavior assessment. And this actually would be generated during the reevaluation process. So this is considered a formal evaluation, so you do have to have a meeting for that and have parent consent. So on this functional behavior assessment, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify the behaviors of the student. So we're just kind of spitballing out all the behaviors that we see. Then we're going to select and define our target behavior. So really you're wanting to pick the behavior that's the most disruptive to the child's learning. So if you see that, one of my examples, so let's say that Johnny is getting out of his seat. He's wandering around the room. He's touching other people. He is going and playing when he should be working. Well, if we think about that, the target behavior should be Johnny staying in his seat. If we can get Johnny to stay in his seat, he's not going to have the opportunity to go touch people, get into things. So my recommendation in that circumstance would be for that to be your target behavior, to focus on him staying in his assigned area. And then you're going to collect data on that target behavior. You're looking at the frequency, how often it's happening, how intense is it. Again, if typically with your physical behaviors, you would see differences in intensity as far as how the behavior is, what it looks like, how it manifests, if it's just yelling or if it does escalate and become more physical. And then the duration, like how long, the time-wise, it's lasting. So you want to have at least a good 2 weeks of data. Certainly more is better, but at least 2 weeks. And once you have that 2 weeks, you would schedule your meeting back to go over this data. And then you want to look at the context. So when, how, where, when, with whom is this happening? So there's some check boxes on the next slide that we'll take a look at. So we're trying to figure out if the student is exhibiting this target behavior in response to one of these contextual areas. So we're looking at setting events. Is there a demand being placed on the student that they're responding to? Is it because of a specific is it because of a specific subject? Is it there a specific teacher or substitute teacher? Is it when we see this behavior when there's a change in the routine? Is it during independent seat work, small group work, whole group instruction? Is it happening at a particular time of day or week? Is it happening during transition times? And then we're also looking at physiological or emotional factors. Are there any diagnoses? Is the student taking any medications? Is he not taking it? Is there a change with it? Are there any other things going on at home or physiologically, biologically with the child that are affecting them at school? And then we're also looking at environmental concerns. Is it due to overstimulation in the classroom from noise, visuals, announcements, bells? Does it have anything to do with seating arrangements, or how close they are to the teacher, or how close they are to others, or any other environmental factors that may be contributing? So again, that what is happening around your child that may be contributing to the behavior. And then we're also looking at the academics piece, the instruction piece. So we want to know, are they on grade level in reading, writing, and math, or are they below or above? And then is their behavior in response to activities that are too easy or too difficult, or both? Are they finishing their work? How long the directions contribute to the behavior, or that they're not having enough processing time? And then if we know their learning style, how do they learn best? Do they have difficulty organizing material or organizing their activities? So anything about the academics and instruction that we feel like is a contributing factor to the behaviors that we're seeing. And then we want to define the function of the behavior. So basically, what is this child trying to accomplish with this behavior? Are we trying to gain attention from someone, whether that's peers, staff, or a preferred adult? Or are we trying to escape? Are we trying to get away from or get out of doing an activity or task, or get away from a particular person, or just the classroom in general? Or are we doing this as a means to try to gain power or control? Is the student doing this just to stimulate themselves because they're bored, or is there some other reason? And then we want to use this to come up with a hypothesis. So what we think the student is doing and why they're doing it, what's reinforcing the behavior. So kind of fill in the blanks here with the example. So when the student is wherever they are and something happens, what's that antecedent? What's causing it to happen? He or she typically responds by, that's going to be that target behavior, to whatever their function is: gain attention, or escape from the classroom, or gain power or control. So we want to detail that out. Again, we need to know what's all causing the behavior and so we know how we can help mitigate that and get a better response from the student. So then we use that information to roll into our behavior intervention plan. So the functional behavior assessment really was a chance to kind of look at everything and put it all together. Now we want to focus on the positive. Okay, so that's what Johnny's been doing. What are we doing as our steps to get Johnny to do what he should? So we want to write out what he's going to do instead of the old behavior. So we're thinking of what's the positive opposite of the target behavior. So if Johnny is getting out of his seat frequently, then our target behavior should be that we want Johnny to stay in his assigned seat or area. And we may want to define that with a certain amount of time, that he'll stay in his assigned seat or area for 15 minutes or or for the class period, or whatever's appropriate based on where he's at now as far as length of time and his age and developmental level. So then we're going to talk about what we're going to do that's beyond the scope of what's typically done for students. So what are teachers and staff doing to help the student learn and encourage that positive behavior replacement? So those may be things like verbal reminders, social stories. It may be modeling the behavior for them, kind of acting that out, having them model the appropriate behavior. It just really depends on what the behavior is. And then we list the responsible person. So who's going to be working on that? It may be the classroom teacher, the special education teacher, or a combination thereof. And certainly, this is a document that we're working on with parents. We love it when parents want to be participating in this and say, hey, I will work with my student and talk through what he needs to do at school before coming. So, put that on there, that the parent is going to do like almost like a check-in with their child and prep them, kind of pre-teach them for the day what they need to do to have a good day. Then we list out our rewards and our reinforcement. So basically what we need to talk to the child and know the child well to figure out what will motivate them to show that positive behavior. And those rewards can be both tangible and intangible. So it could be, things like candy or time to play a game that they really like. And also, verbal praise is one that I pretty much always like to include. Everybody likes to hear positive things, and that is very motivating for children. And again, this is another place where it's really great to have parents teaming up with us on this. And some of the best results I've had is when I've worked with parents and we've come up with a reward system at school where they're getting a daily reward, and then the parent piggybacks on that with a reward at home based on so many good days. So that's awesome when we can get that together. And then, of course, we have the responsible person, which is typically your general education teacher, special education teacher, and or parent. And then we have our consequences. So what we're using to discourage the negative behavior. So we might have things like, redirecting the child, going back and reteaching appropriate behaviors, um, contacting parents if needed. If it's something like they're not completing their work, a logical consequence may be that their classwork now becomes homework. You basically, I like to think of the phrase that I use with parenting, that you kind of want the punishment to fit the crime. So meaning that whatever your consequence should logically make sense. So if it's something like not doing their work, if parents are willing to coordinate with us and support the child in doing that classwork for homework, so that they get that message that they can't really escape it, that helps a lot. Or that a child, is earning a privilege based on so many good days, the parent is willing to hold that child accountable and say, okay, well, we said you had to have 5 good days to go to the park today, and you did not have a good day. You did not stay in your seat like you were supposed to. So I'm sorry, we can't go to the park. That's, again, really great for supporting the student and giving them that message that home and school are connected and everyone's part of the same team. And again, on here, your responsible person could be a general education teacher, special education teacher, as well as parent. And then the team sets an amount of time that they're going to have this plan in place. Typically, and again, it may vary from state to state. Typically, we start with 3 to 6 weeks here in North Carolina. If things are going bad pretty quickly, a couple weeks in, then we may come back. We can always meet sooner. But we want to try to give it a few weeks just to see. Sometimes things get a little worse before they get better because the student is trying to figure out how if we're really going to stick to our guns on this sometimes. We can wait that full time. We really like to do that. So you're going to have a review. So this is an evolving document. It is not something that's going to be the same forever and ever. It's not like your IEP. It doesn't last a year. You meet on it as needed. So for that initial meeting, in your initial review, you're going to review the current plan. You're going to read through it, and you're going to talk about those reinforcers and consequences. So those rewards and consequences. Are they still appropriate? Are they working? Are they being used? Is the child responding to them? If not, tweaking those. I know sometimes parents like to move away from the tangible rewards as a child becomes more proficient with following through and earning their rewards. They want to try, and becomes older, the parents want to get them more to those intangible rewards. So things like that. Then if there's any additional supports or strategies needed, sometimes the student, you have met a few times, students still struggling with behavior, teachers are still struggling, parents are struggling. So there are times when you may reach out, the teachers may reach out to someone else from the county to see if they can come in, make some observations, give some suggestions. It's all about team support. So if this small IEP team is having trouble with getting things to where they want them for the child as far as behavior, reaching out to other people in the county and getting their input is great. More eyes are always better. And then if there's any changes to the plan, so documenting where you made changes so you know from what previous revisions looked like, in case you tweak something and you thought it was going to be great and then it wasn't. You're like, you know what, that past plan was really great. What did we change? What do I need to do? It's right there. You can kind of reverse those changes. And then you would set your time for your next review. And again, that's going to be dependent on the needs of the child and how well they're responding to this plan. And so that can vary, as needed. But that is functional behavior analysis, behavior intervention plans, and the review of behavior intervention plans in a nutshell. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that was helpful, and I really hope that you enjoyed the IEP webinar series. Thank you.